But there is a great opportunity for disinformation, especially on social media. I caution you to be very careful about what you choose to believe and on what basis. The horrific scene at a hospital in Gaza today, an explosion that killed more than 500 people.
The government in Gaza says the Israeli Defense Forces struck a hospital in the center of Gaza City.
An airstrike hit a Gaza City hospital, killing at least 500 people.
It's because of an alleged Israeli airstrike on a hospital in Gaza that Hamas health officials say killed more than 500 people.
And when you're talking about 500 people, you have to wonder how many of those people are innocent civilians.
That minimum hundreds of people have been killed in what they say was an Israeli airstrike.
Where a hospital was caved in, killing hundreds and stranding an untold number under the concrete.
By far, the deadliest Israeli airstrike ever.
Hundreds taking shelter at a Gaza City hospital were killed in an Israeli airstrike today. Israel says it was targeting Hamas hideouts.
Palestinian officials saying at least 500 people killed in what they claim was an Israeli airstrike.
After headline after headline after headline after headline. And none of them offered a retraction. None of them offered a correction. None of them offered an apology when it was shown that it was actually Hamas. It was a terrorist group that misfired a rocket and hit the parking lot of a hospital. I don't know what the hell 500 people were doing in a parking lot in the middle of the night, but, you know, I'm not a terrorist propagandist. Welcome back to the program. Top of this second hour. Dana Lash here with you. You can listen coast to coast. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, Channel 347, Direct TV as well. Here's one of the things, because the media was so busy. They were so busy running defense and taking absolute lies from Hamas and running it as verified news. I saw this yesterday. I was listening to testimony, and it was at someone who was asking the United Nations. It was the ambassador to the United States on behalf of Israel. And the question came up, where was the United Nations? You know, because the United Nations issued a statement. All these people issued a statement. All of the unrest and destabilization that you're seeing is because of this story. In fact, our own travel department, our State Department here in the United States issued a travel advisory, just a generic worldwide travel advisory for all Americans traveling overseas right now. All because of this story, this lie that went around the world, and nobody offered a correction. Some reporters and even lawmakers like Rashida Tlaib refused to even acknowledge the truth of the story. But where were all of these people, and where was the United Nations, and where was CNN, and where was the Associated Press, and Reuters, and Agence France Presse, and the BBC, and the Guardian, and everyone else? Where were they last week when Hamas fired at the Barzilai Medical Center in Ashkelon? You realize that before Hamas fired rockets and hit a parking lot of one of its own hospitals, last week they fired rockets at an Israeli hospital. And even before then, if you would like to look years back, there are other hospitals that they fired rockets at. But for the sake of discussion for this particular terrorist atrocity, let's just talk about the time span of the past 4 weeks. Where was the media attention when Hamas fired missiles at an Israeli hospital in Ashkelon last week? Where was CNN? Where was the Associated Press and the Guardian and the Telegraph and Agence France Presse and the BBC and Reuters and the whole lot of them? Where were they at? Where was the United Nations? Where was Rashida Tlaib? Where was Ilhan Omar? Where was the Hamas caucus of the Democrat Party? Where were all of the college students who are protesting about the parking lot that Hamas hit? Where were all of they last week when Hamas fired at the Barzilai Medical Center in Ashkelon? Why didn't the United Nations call for a meeting of its Security Council last week when Hamas fired rockets at an Israeli hospital? Why weren't college students out protesting last week when Hamas fired rockets at an Israeli hospital? Why weren't any of these reporters writing stories about this after Hamas fired rockets at an Israeli hospital? Why was there no regional unrest that spread as a result of Hamas firing rockets at an Israeli hospital? That's because people don't care and they want dead Jews. That's the truth of it, because they don't care. They only pretend to care if Hamas kills its own citizens and kills its own kids, and then they stage them. I will never get over that photo of these doctors in their clean white coats. They all look pressed like they just stepped out of a bandbox. Their clean white coats, and they stood in front of a hospital that was untouched in the daytime, by the way. And they staged the area. Hamas staged the area. It's Hamas because the Palestinian Health Ministry is Hamas. They piled up these bodies around them. Did you see? And they had these other Hamas apologists hold the bodies of what they said were dead children. I'm just curious why all these people were in a parking lot in the middle of the night, because that's supposedly when the attack happened. And actually, that according to the geo-tracking and the time-stamped, the coding, the metadata, and all of the video that has been made publicly available, and our own American intelligence has confirmed it, as well as the intel departments of other countries, that it was Hamas, because this never left Gazan airspace, that destroyed a parking lot of its own hospital. But where did they get all these dead bodies at? Why were these people all in a parking lot in the middle of the night? I mean, it wasn't a very big parking lot. How do you get 500 people crammed into that size of a parking lot in the middle of the night? Why were they all in the parking lot in the middle of the night? Has anybody in the press bothered to ask those types of questions when they were kissing the ass of Hamas? I'm curious.